We are going to present the Industrial Revolution. It was a period of profound economic and social changes caused by machinery, and rural societies were transformed into urban societies. These changes began in Britain in the second half of the 18th century, and it was divided into the demographic revolution grew slowly until the 18th century because of the population growth and death rate decreased. This was because the nutrition that improved agriculture and people's diets. High and too because it was more widespread and better access to several things. Then public health that Edward Jenner discovered the vaccines against smallpox. Finally, epidemics in the early modern period. Agricultural revolution led to innovation in crops and livestock farming. Owing to the farming techniques, the three-field system, it was replaced by the four-field system. Happens the same with wood and iron in new machines. Land became private property because bourgeoisie bought farmland in order to profit from selling its products. Other factors affecting economic growth is that Britain had healthy domestic markets, so he sold it in numerous colonies, producing enormous profits. A new mentality like investment, business risk, and pursuit of profit. Finally, the British countryside was rich with iron and coal.
Until the 18th century, most of the products were made by artisans in small workshops. The workshops were replaced by factories, and the first machines used hydraulic energy, but after the steam engine was invented, they became steam-powered. Then the manufacture process changed. Its workers specialized in a single task, and this system increased the productivity, and this system is called division of labor. Steel industry was the first to introduce technical innovation in spinning and weaving. The iron used in Britain was exported from Sweden and was very expensive. Then the iron became cheaper after 1709 when Abraham Darby invented a blast furnace to smelt iron using products derived from coal. In the late 18th century, some machines were invented to manufacture products more quickly, and a new type of wrought iron was invented. The new economic doctrine of liberalism spread widely during the early stages of the Industrial Revolution. It was based on the theories of Adam Smith. The economic freedom was freedom to create companies, hire workers, and set the conditions and prices of the product. Smith argued that the state shouldn't intervene in the economy as the economy adjusts itself naturally by means of the invisible hand. The invisible hand was the way prices and salaries are regulated by the law of supply and demand.
The Transport Revolution. Advances in navigation. British industrial production grew rapidly. Safe transport was necessary to ensure that factories received supplies. Before the 18th century, road travel wasn't comfortable. After 1750, new roads were built and old roads were repaired. Between 1770 and 1830, numerous canals were constructed. The railway age. The railway was possible by two advances of industrial revolution. Iron and a steam engine. In 1814, George Stephenson built a steam-powered locomotive. In 1825, the first cargo railway line was built in England, and in 1830, the first public transport railway line was opened between Liverpool and Manchester. Technical advances made the railway a fast, safe, and cheap means of transport. It had a great impact on industrialization. Railways were built all over the world. The impact of the transport revolution. The new means of transport were faster and safer. They had a massive social and economic impact. Trade. Transport times and cost were reduced. It also became much easier for people to travel. Specialization in the world's economy. Industrialist countries specialize in manufacturing and exporting products. Mining, metallurgy, and the iron industry. These industries were strengthened because they provide the raw materials for building. Daily life. Nutrition improves as food could be transported longer distances. It became much easier to emigrate.
The Second Industrial Revolution started in 1870 and finished in 1914. In this period, the inventions and scientific advances contributed to the boost to the economic improvement. There were new energy sources and industries. Electricity was used to power machines and some other things. Petroleum grew. Iron and steel industry expanded. The chemical industry was used to make new products, and the electrical industry was used to produce and distribute electricity. When the Industrial Revolution began, there were many small companies or small family businesses who didn't earn enough money. To solve this problem, corporations were created. There were also new systems of production, such as Taylorism. It was a production process that was divided into small tasks. The assembly line. Products were passed from one worker to the next one, and mass production. Identical parts were manufactured before all the parts were put together. Three types of corporate groups emerged. Cartel was an association of companies who reached an agreement to control production and distribution. The holding company controlled all the companies. And trust was an association of companies that covered all the stages in the manufacture of a product.
The spread of the Industrial Revolution. In Europe, it took place in the north and northwest. In the rest of Europe, there were little industrialization. Belgium, its main industries were textiles, iron and steel. Germany, its main industries were iron, steel and metallurgy. France didn't become as industrialized as Britain because of survival of small independent farmers, traditional artisanal activity, and slow population growth. And Sweden, that had an important iron industry. In United States, in 19th century, became a great industrial power due to extensive agricultural production, abundant natural resources, specialized production, and innovation. Japan under Emperor Meiji. In 1878-1812, Emperor Meiji brought Japan into industrial age. Industrialization was driven by the state. In 19th century, large industrial corporations were formed under family control, and its main industries were textile and heavy industry. Russia. Industrialization was driven by the state investment, foreign investment, and state protection. The effects of industrialization. Population growth. Through 19th century, European population grew quickly. There were two main causes. The death rate decreased and the birth rate remained high in most of Europe. An age of migration. Industrial revolution makes cities the center of production. Peasants migrate to cities in search of work. As cities didn't have the capacity to absorb all Europe's growing rural population, 60 million Europeans emigrated to other continents. And there were two phases of transoceanic migration. Up to 1870, immigrants were British and Northern European. And between 1870 and 1940, immigrants were Italian, Spanish, Greek, and Turkish.
We're going to talk about the class system of the Industrial Revolution. The society was divided into three groups: higher class, middle class, and lower class. The group you belonged to depended on your wealth, so it was possible to change class, but it was almost impossible. Now we're going to talk about the higher class. Since the aristocracy was losing power, the bourgeoisie became the most powerful group on the industrial society. It was divided into two smaller groups, the high bourgeoisie and the bourgeoisie. The bourgeoisie lived in comfortable houses surrounded by beautiful parks or gardens, and there were very popular leisure activities for that group of people, and their wealth was attributed to their bourgeoisie values. Then we have the middle class, also known as the petite bourgeoisie. The middle class was a very large and diverse group, and it was made up of the middle social layer and the people who work on normal jobs. They weren't as wealthy as the bourgeoisie, but they shared their values and had properties and land and great education for their children. They also supported political reforms. Finally, we have the lower class, which was made up by peasants, proletariat, and house servants. The peasants were the largest group in the whole society. However, their conditions changed depending on where they lived. Then, the proletariat only possessed direct jobs, or laborers. They earned really low salaries, and it was impossible for them to change social class. Finally, we have the house servants, who also earned really low salaries, had one free day each week, and lived on the basements where they worked.
Labor movement, early labor movements. The Industrial Revolution began in Britain, where workers first organized themselves. Ludism. New technologies made skilled workers lose their jobs in the textile industry. In response, some of them destroyed factory machines. This developed into the Judit movement. Chartism was the first organized labor movement with political goals. Between 1838 and 1848, these movements had millions of supporters and presented its People's Charter to the British Parliament. Trade unions. At the beginning of the 19th, workers formed mutual aid societies, which help members in case of illness or unemployment. The right of assembly was first granted in Great Britain in 1824, and after that the first trade unions appeared. Marxism and anarchism. Marxism is named after one of its founders, the German philosopher Karl Marx. Together with Friedrich Engels, published the Communist Manifesto in 1848. According to Marxism, there was a class struggle between oppressors and the oppressed in industrial societies. Anarchism was created by the founders Pierre-Joseph Proudhon and Mikhail Bakunin. Anarchists opposed any form of state and hoped to replace it with voluntary associations. The Workers' Internationals. In 1864, labor organizations created the first International Workingmen's Association, often called the First International. In 1889, a few socialist leaders founded the Socialist International, or Second International, to coordinate Marxist labor organization. The International Workers' Day on 1st May of each year.